everyone, Voodoo here, and welcome to my 11.1 guide for Havoc Demon Hunter. In this video, we're going to go over everything you need to know to play Havoc in this patch. Talents, rotation, intricate things to this rotation as well, because Reaver's Glaive is entirely new. Go over gear, trinkets, consumables, and pretty much everything. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, so I do every season, but if you're new here, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to get to 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I think we can do it. So with that out of the way, let's start off with talents. So first things first, gotta start with talents. So before you here is the best raid talent build. Now there are of course options to change around in here, but it's using all the inertia stuff as we know and love, and the Aldrachi Reaver. So the big stuff here is that we are playing the new glaive talent. So we're playing Scream Brutality and all of the glaive things as well. So your Blade Dance will automatically throw your glaives for you. We also are playing the new Cycle of Hatred and Shadow Destiny because they're pretty powerful for 1 point. Of course, Essence Break is still around, and Inertia is here. On the Aldrachi Reaver side, the only real choice that matters is Keen Engagement versus Preemptive Strike. Preemptive Strike does not work in single target, so if you're fighting one boss, or there's a boss with not really any significant cleave, then use Keen Engagement. If there is significant cleave, or it's, you know, an AoE fight, then you would use Preemptive Strike instead. So that will just change depending on what you're doing in the raid. If you want something easier to play build, I don't think Inertia is that hard anymore. You're not Fel Rushing, you're just using Fel Blade. You can swap to Exergy for a 2% loss, which is honestly pretty close. Otherwise, you can just drop both movement talents to pick up 2 Blind Fury. Again though, wouldn't really recommend this one. Exergy is pretty set it and forget it, not very difficult, but this one is, you know, pretty good. And you can also drop Initiative as well to pick up like Isolated Prey. So that would be like a no mover option. But again, wouldn't recommend that. Would recommend Exergy if you don't want to do Inertia. Otherwise, play the Inertia build. This is 300,000 DPS ahead of Fel Scarred. Fel Scarred is not particularly close, but if you really hate Aldrachi Reaver and want to play Fel Scarred, then this will be the build you use, which I'll show you in just 1 second. So this is the Fel Scarred build, pretty similar to what we're playing currently on live. I think almost exactly the same though, except you are now playing Shadow Destiny and Cycle of Hatred, of course. Fel Scarred lost a lot of power with the removal of any means necessary, meaning that like it's really not that good in raid anymore. You also sacrifice basically all of your cleave. You do use Blade Dance occasionally. Blade Dance does decent enough damage because they buffed it, but you don't take Trail of Ruin. You don't have Deflecting Dance for defensive options anymore. You're still saving Sigil of Flame for your Essence Break windows. You're still using Inertia because of how much damage Demon Surge will do. Demon Surge, of course, nerfed down because it no longer has Chaos Conversion. Brain Blades nerfed because it no longer has Chaos Conversion. They buffed them, but it's not as much. And yeah, so this is here if you want to play it. It really is not better than Aldrachi Reaver, and I don't recommend it if you want to do the most damage or anything like that. But if you hate Aldrachi Reaver, this is the build for you. The cleave here as well, not that good. So for Mythic Plus, this is probably going to be your best option. Now, I will say there are a lot of things up in the air about like the best build for Mythic Plus, and a lot of things are very close, which is good. So a lot of different talent options, we'll go over them, but I would recommend this one. If you want an easier option, Exergy is very close as well. Inertia would have a higher ceiling, but a lower floor. Exergy has a lower ceiling, but a higher floor. So, you know, take that as you will. There is also a seemingly viable low mover option, not as good as Exergy or Inertia in my opinion. We'll show that as well. But that's your first option. Other option is basically Serrated Glaive is a huge flex point. You can put it kind of wherever. Looks can kill for more burst AoE. Chaotic Disposition for more just general damage, less priority, but like kind of just like everywhere damage. Glaive Tempest for another AoE button. Wouldn't really recommend this with Inertia. Probably better with Exergy. Also weird with both Essence Break in that one. We're using Serrated Glaive right now because it is probably just like a really good option. If you're in a dungeon with larger pull counts, this loses value, and you can put it like Looks Can Kill or Chaotic Disposition. Sims have been weird for AoE. Lots of things have been performing pretty well. So realistically, these 2 points with Essence Break and Chaotic Disposition can kind of go anywhere. If you want to play something easier, you can do Glaive Tempest CD, Glaive Tempest, Looks Can Kill. A lot of choices there, but this is basically the shell you'll be playing with, and then you'll fill in the other talents as you wish. Essence Break, of course, very powerful, and Serrated Glaive is just a good option with the Glaive stuff and for priority. If you want to do no mover, you would drop out Inertia, pick up Looks Can Kill, and then drop out Tactical Retreat for kind of anything. Glaive Tempest sims the highest, but it's kind of a weird button. Chaotic Disposition is a good, just kind of all-around option, and this is a no mover build. You're still taking Initiative, but you're just never using it. In terms of like the actual Aldrachi Reaver tree, and over here, you would actually like to pick up Chaos Fragments instead of something like Felfire Haste or anything like that, because this gives you Soul Fragments, which is obviously more glaive stuff, so that's kind of cringe, but is what it is. And then over here, you're using Preemptive Strike always, and you're using Army Unto Oneself as a pretty powerful option. Incredible Spirit's also very good if you want to just think about it less, but it's there. So those are your options for Inertia, for Aldrachi. Fel Scarred is also pretty valuable though. So this is your Inertia build for Mythic Plus. Now it is not better than Aldrachi Reaver, but it can perform quite well, especially at lower keys where packs die pretty quick because of its burst damage. The big difference from this build from the previous season is that we're no longer playing Sigil Flame buff, the Student of Suffering in AoE. Instead, they buffed up Flamebound to be a 50% increased crit strike damage bonus, and it also gives Ragefire the extra range, which means you'll hit more Ragefires and deal more damage with those Ragefires, which is pretty good. It really buffs up Immolation or damage. You're always going to play Inertia because of how much damage is Demon Surge related. Of course, they have capped Demon Surge as well, so there you go. The real flex point here, of course, is Chaos Disposition and Essence Break again. I find it very hard to drop Essence Break in this build because you're always going to play Inertia, which is very, very good, and your single target is not very good, which will, Essence Break will help out. Chaos Disposition is here for the Immolation aura stuff and all the chaos damage you do with your I-Beam. It can be moved into Looks Can Kill for more I-Beam damage, or moved into Serrated Glaive for more priority damage, or Glaive Tempest for just another button to use that if you want, I guess. Chaos Disposition is just like a pretty good all-around option, and is what, again, I would recommend here. Again, this is not better than Aldrachi Reaver, but if you want to play it in low keys, it does pretty good burst damage still, especially if you're playing around meta. So there you go. So for the rotation section, I will probably not be covering Fel Scarred in this video because it is, again, not as good as Aldrachi Reaver, which is the best option for both environments now. If you want to see that, I will be covering it later in a video further down the line, probably a few weeks from now, but it won't really be here. I'll be covering the opener for Aldrachi Reaver for single target and AoE, and some in-depth intricacies about like beam usage and Reaver's Glaive usage and stuff like that. So for the opener, you'll be using Sigil and Flame and Immolation or pre-pull. Then you'll be using the Hunt, followed by Reaver's Glaive, I-Beam, Fellblade, Annihilation, Essence Break, Death Sweep. Then you use Vengeful Retreat and Meta together, followed by another Death Sweep, then 2 Annihilations, followed by another Fellblade, then I-Beam, then Sigil Spite, and then Death Sweep, and that'll be your opener. If you're not in Lust, you can move the first Fellblade until after the Annihilation, but this is going to be with Lust. From there, because you're with Shattered Destiny and Cycle of Hatred, things will start to desync a little bit. The big thing to line them back up is that for your second Essence Break, your third I-Beam, and whatever Vengeful Retreat is in meta, you want to just use them on cooldown. You won't hold them at all for the first thing. The thing you will be holding is your fourth I-Beam to pair with Vengeful Retreat when it's back up. This will sync everything back up again and mean that you won't really have to worry too much about how to time things. So if things ever desync, make sure you're using Essence Break and Vengeful Retreat on cooldown and just sync up your I-Beam with Vengeful Retreat, and then things should work out well enough again after that. If you're ever doing your Essence Break combo, it will be as followed. The Essence combos are going to be I-Beam and VR together, then you're going to Fellblade, followed by Essence Break, followed by Death Sweep, and then 2 Annihilations, or Annihilations until the ability ends. You want to make sure you always have Reaver's Mark going into these, which we'll talk about in the next section on Reaver's Glaive usage. Outside of the opener and all the things I talked about for single target, you're really just going to be using Chaos Strike and Blade Dance on cooldown. I-Beam Vengeful Retreat on cooldown. Whenever you enter kind of the I-Beam window, you want to just empower the Death Sweep and the Annihilations after it, not really the I-Beam on single target, and then also make sure you're getting 2 Death Sweeps every time you use I-Beam. Unless it's an Essence Rank window, you can't really do that in those windows, but otherwise you should be able to, and you want some haste to do that, which we'll touch on with the stats, of course. So with that out of the way, we kind of want to talk about the biggest thing here, and that's going to be Reaver's Glaive usage. Now, Reaver's Glaive usage is a little complex. Basically, though, I want people to kind of decouple it from the actual idea of the empowered marks and for the Aldrachi, stuff like that. In single target, a lot of people probably think you want to use Chaos Strike second, so you get the 14% mark, and that is not the case. The main thing you're doing with Reaver's Glaive is keeping uptime of Thrill of the Fight, and also making sure you have mark up for whenever you do I-Beam or whenever you do Essence Break. That's kind of it. You don't really care which you empower second, but it basically will always be Death Sweep because of just how the rotation works. But how you want to do it is you want to play it so that you're throwing the glaive to keep uptime of the buff. So how this works in kind of like the sim and how we've coded it out is that if Thrill damage buff, so 20% damage, has less than 4 GCDs remaining, or the Hunt is coming off CD, or you're about to I-Beam, and you haven't used Reaver's Glaive in more than 5 seconds, and meta has some duration left, or you're going to I-beam in the next 10 seconds, throw the glaive. Now that can be further reduced to throw the glaive when your damage buff is about to drop, or if you are about to I-beam in less than 10 seconds. So the reasoning for that, of course, is to keep up throw the fight, but also to have at least one stack Reaver's Mark on every I-beam and Essence Break window. That's very important. So keep up your buff. If the buff is dropped, hold it until roughly 8 to 5 seconds before you use I-beam. If the I-beam window is going to be an Essence Break window, then you do want to actually save the Death Sweep for it. So you'll throw your glaive, Chaos Strike, Chaos Strike, Chaos Strike, I-beam, backflip Annihilation, backflip Essence Break, yada yada yada. So if the window is going to be a beam window, you can just glaive Death Sweep as normal, or Blade Dance as normal. But if it's going to be an Essence Break window, save the Blade Dance for inside that Essence Break window. So it's not too hard when people think of it this way. That it's like throw it if your buff is going to drop, subtract that buff, or if you're about to I-beam. Otherwise, don't really matter about it. And in AoE, it's pretty easy as well too, which we'll touch on after the AoE rotation, which we'll get to now. So for your AoE rotation, the opener will be a little bit depending on how many procs you get of Immolation Aura. But whenever I say Immolation Aura, just if it procs again, use it. Okay, that's going to be basically it. But the opener is going to be Sigil of Flame and Immolation Aura pre-pull, followed by the Hunt. Then you're going to use Reaver's Glaive, Chaos Strike, Immolation Aura, Blade Dance. Then you want to use Fel Blade, I-beam, Vengeful Retreat, and Essence Break. Death Sweep, meta, Death Sweep. If Inertia drops, then you'll use Death Sweep, meta, Fel Blade, Death Sweep. Followed by Annihilation, followed by Beam, and then followed by Sigil. You want to have inertia on your I-beams as much as you can, as well as the Death Sweeps, of course. Those are your most important parts of damage. And you're doing this weird delay opener so that you get the 20% throw the fight buff on your I-beams. That's kind of important. I-beam does a lot of damage. You use it very often now, and that's gonna be the opener. If things don't live very long, you can just use the single target opener. It's not gonna be that big of a difference. But in AoE, you do want to use the delay if you can, and try and hold a Reaver's Glaive from pack to pack. Everything I said from single target AoE applies as well, with delaying I-beams. They do sync up a little bit weird. Things should align more naturally as you go from pack to pack than they will in single target. Of course, we don't actually have Shadow Destiny, so things will be a little bit weirder. Basically just kind of save I-beam for Vengeful Retreats or Essence Break so you can buff it. For inertia, you basically always just want to inertia I-beam, so backflip plus some other ability, then Fel Blade, then I-beam, followed by like Death Sweep and whatever. And your Essence Break windows in AoE will be like backflip plus Chaos Strike, Fel Blade, I-beam, Essence Break, Death Sweep. So you just want to use another ability because Fel Blade shares a lockout with via Vengeful Retreat, so you can't use it right away, or like Vengeful Retreat and Immolation Aura or something. So just that you don't want to line them up like that. For Reaver's Glaive usage in AoE, it's going to be very similar. You want to have a stack of Reaver's Glaive whenever you go to a new pack if you can, because a lot of our damage is that way. A lot of our damage on this is also through Wounded Quarry. So what you want to do is you want to throw it and then Chaos Strike whatever the highest priority target is, and then Death Sweep. You always want to Death Sweep or Blade Dance second, because you're getting the extra Chaos Strike, the extra physical damage hits around you, and it's just going to do more damage and apply more funnel to your primary target. You will always do that. You're never going to do Death Sweep first in AoE. I mean, you don't really do it in single target either, but you need to make sure in AoE you're not, where in single target it doesn't matter that much if you do or not. So basically just always use Chaos Strike into Blade Dance. Try and have the buff up as well for any future Reaver's Glaives or any future I-beams. So inertia I-beams, use Reaver's Glaive to be buffed when you can, and just focus down kind of whatever. You're not going to have high uptime in AoE, it's just not how it works. But if the pack's going to die, hold your Glaive to start off the next pack with a pretty strong burst opener. And that's it for rotation. So with rotation stuff out of the way, let's go to stats. Now, of course, if you have a question, drop it down below. But stats this time around will be the same as they were last season. For both Mythic Plus and Raid, Critical Strike will be your best stat, followed by Mastery. So just focus those down. In Raid, because we're playing Shattered Destiny, you do want some haste, between like 10 to 14% haste or so, depending on like your ping and stuff like that. But this is just to allow you to get 2 Death Sweeps in every single IV window. Now this number should be very easy to hit, considering we have like 6% haste baseline. So a very minor minor amount of haste on like 1 or 2 pieces of gear is pretty important. If you want a little bit more haste, it'll be like worse, obviously, but it might help you hit those breakpoints, which is something that like obviously you're gonna have to think about it yourself. Like, you know, if you have a little bit of issue hitting buttons as often, or you're just not able to get double death sweep, then gearing a little bit more towards haste, dropping a little bit of mastery will help you hit double death sweeps. But generally speaking, you want to do critical strike and mastery in both raid and mythic plus. And mythic plus versatility is better than haste. And if you find yourself dying often, then you can gear out some of your verse for some of your versatility. But crit is kind of the one you never really want to drop. So for gear, a few interesting things about gear. So we're going to have a full gearing guide out on probably the Monday and talks about things more in depth. But basically speaking, we'll talk about embellishments first, and then we'll do the rest of the gear. So for embellishments, it's the same as last season. So in raid, Ascendance is going to be slightly better on a weapon and wrists, just slightly better. I would recommend this for prog. For Mythic Plus, the other one, Dawn Silken Lining or Dawn Thread Lining, will be much better because you don't really have the uptime that Ascendance gives you. I wouldn't really recommend this one for prog, obviously, because you're going to have parts where your HP drops because you're progressing. But later on in the raid, when you know everyone's more geared and you have more HP and healers are doing more healing, then Dawn Thread will be about equal to Ascendance, and you know it will be whatever. But if you're a Mythic Pluser, I would focus on Dawn Thread. If you're a Raider, I would focus on Ascendance. I will say that crafting Ascendance first, because you get a weapon, is going to be very important. This tier, or this expansion, it seems that embellishments don't scale with eye level, so it doesn't really matter what eye level you put things on. But crafting a weapon first, no matter what you do, will be a very good option. So for trinkets, for single target, you want to use the improvised Sephorium Pacemaker from the new dungeon, Operation whatever, the new dungeon. This one's very strong, gives you a ton of crit basically every 60 seconds, so it's like a 50% uptime of like a ton of critical strike, which is really, really good. And then the other option for raid will be Eye of Kizan, drops on the last boss of the raid. It's a mastery equip, and it just gives you primary stat, but it's decays over time when you leave combat. It stacks up. It's not very good for Mythic Plus because it has to take time to build up. So for Mythic Plus, I would recommend using, again, Sephorium Pacemaker, and then as the alternate, you want to use either the deck of cards on use from the raid, just gives you a bunch of mastery, or the Signet of the Priory on use from Mythic Plus. So just some kind of on use that gives you a ton of stats, either crit or mastery, both are fine. And then the Sephorium Pacemaker, which would be very powerful as you go pack to pack. That's basically it for trinkets. There's not really a ton of other great options, and not a lot of other things I'd want to use. For very rare items, you do want to use the Jaster Diamond from the last boss, very rare ring, a ton of mastery to it, and it just kind of gives you extra stats. And then you also want to use the Capo's Molten Knuckles, specifically for raid. AoE sims are kind of out on this still. I would still use it for AoE for now, because it does seem to do pretty decent damage in AoE, but we'll see on this one, and we'll update this as things go. But for now, Capo's Molten Knuckles and the Jaster Diamond will be used. And I also hope you farmed up your Circe's Circlet, because it is also used right now. If they nerf it, you'll use just any high critical strike ring, but we'll talk about that more in the gearing section of the video on Monday. The last thing is your tier set. So the rules for your tier set are going to be weird this time around. Our tier set is pretty bad next season. It's horrible at the time of me recording this, which is February 23rd. It's possible they buff it, but at the time being, basically you don't want to change out your tier set until you get 2-piece of the equivalent like raid level next season. So if you have a heroic tier set, then you will not change that tier set until you get 2-piece heroic next season. If you have a mythic tier set, then you will not change that tier set out until you get 2 678 mythic tier pieces from the next raid. It is about a 1% gain when you do that, and it's about a 5% gain when you get your 4 set. So it's not really a great set. It's way worse than our current one, but the eye level kind of bumps it up. So if you're a mythic raider from last season, you will not be getting tier until you go to mythic raid. So good luck with that one. That's basically it for kind of the broader points of gearing, and we'll do a more finer discussion of it on Monday, but just focus crit strike, mastery, and grab those other items. So in terms of consumables and gems and everything like that, for consumables, you want to use the Tempered Potion and the Flask of Alchemical Chaos at the highest rank you can. You might think, well, why don't we want a stat flask? And it's because A, you get pretty good stats from this, and B, it makes the Tempered Potion actually work, where otherwise you just have a weaker unused combat potion, which is not very good. For weapon stuff, you actually want to use mana oil this time around. That gives you critical strike and haste. It'll get you more damage. For feast, you want to do the highest secondary stat one, Belladar's Bounty, which means that unfortunately, if you're in a raid, then the hardy feast will be a little bit worse for you. But obviously, it's like not really that big of a deal. So if you want to use that one, go ahead and use it. It's not really going to change a ton of things. And then for enchants, critical strike enchants on your rings, just the highest agility enchants everywhere else. And then for gems, you do want one of the primary stat and critical strike effect, and then one of each gem color. So you want one verse, one mastery, one critical strike, and then one haste one as well. From there, you actually want critical strike and mastery gems. Critical strike is much better for Aldrachi. So you want haste crit, verse crit, and mastery crit, and then a bunch of crit mastery to fill the rest of your slots. And that's kind of it for consumables. Not a lot of them this season. And yeah. All right, everybody. And that is it for my guide for this season. Now, of course, we're going to have more content. We're going to do deeper dives and other things. But this is kind of the big seasonal overview of Havoc Demon Hunter that I do every season. We are playing Aldrachi this season. We actually look pretty viable. If you want to see my thoughts, you can check out the video from Monday. And I hope this helped. Aldrachi Reaver is interesting. I don't specifically think either of our hero talent trees at this point are good. Reaver has some fun aspects to it. I really like the funnel. It has some annoying aspects to it. Souls kind of suck. There is a bit of a weird buff thing to it, but I am glad to be playing something different. Still hoping we'll get some changes in the future to our hero talent trees, because neither are great. But I do think the changes Havoc itself got with the eye beam and inertia and the new tier step back are pretty good changes and pretty fun. Havoc does seem to be in a pretty good spot for both Raid and Mythic Plus, which is exciting, and we'll have more content, more streams, everything like that. So if you want to see me streaming, I'll be streaming a lot over the next few weeks over on Twitch, Voodoosaurus. It's linked in the description. If you have questions for me, drop them in the comments. You can also reach out to me on Discord. If you join my Discord in the description, you can ask there or just send me a DM. If you want to help support the channel, you become either a sub on Twitch or a sub on YouTube or a channel member on YouTube to help support me there. And just appreciate everybody watching, appreciate everybody hanging out for their season. Should be a fun season for Havoc. The raid looks pretty interesting in terms of thematics, so I'm excited for that. And I appreciate you all watching every time. So like, comment, subscribe. We are trying to get to 15,000 this year, and I appreciate every single one of you for watching the video and stuff like that. So let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. A big thank you to all of my channel members. Thank you to Rukaza, Alexander Trufonovich, Fear Redefined, Loose Change, Zuligan, Gabrielle Correa, Magic Man 133, and Fel Scarred Dark Terror. Thank you so much to everybody here. If you guys want to help support me and just help grow the channel, consider joining a channel member down below. Get your name right at the end of every video. If you otherwise, you can watch me on Twitch as well. You can sub there. And just thank you everybody watching my video. Thank you to my channel members for supporting me and helping me do this. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.